Who do you think wins the Big Ten in 2025? Ohio State was the favorite last year, and they won the national championship, but they did not win the Big Ten. In fact, they didn't even make it to Indianapolis, despite being the number one power-rated team. If you looked at FPI, I think in S&P Plus, Oregon may have briefly overtaken Ohio State. I forget. Anyways, it's not really all that important. The Big Ten has a lot of high-quality teams at the top. Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, and last year Indiana took the place of what many thought was going to be Michigan. But is the balance of power different entering 2025? That's what I want to answer today, spending 60 seconds, maybe a little bit more around there on each Big Ten team, starting from who I think will be the worst in 2025, and we'll finish with the best. So stay tuned and make sure before we begin to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Liking the video and hitting that bell are the most important. Subscriptions are nice, but they're essentially gravy. Liking and hitting the bell does a lot more for me in terms of earning money and in terms for you in watching my content, making sure you get more quality content than simply hitting the subscribe button, although that's necessary to hit the notification bell, so it's important. Just do all those things, comment your thoughts down below, and enjoy. Let me know specifically who you think the best teams will be in the Big Ten. If you have the time even, give me your Big Ten power rankings. Let's get to it and start off with Purdue. And before I forget, I just want to let you all know that if you want to support the channel monetarily, or if you want to engage with me in a chat, join our Discord server via the link in the description and the links to a Patreon page and merchandise store where you can support the channel monetarily. They exist, so click on those. Purdue at 18th. That's it, honestly. I have no idea how they're going to be better than that. In terms of power rankings and power ratings, eventually my computerized power ratings will be out, hopefully before the season kicks off. They came out a little bit after the season kicked off last season, but I don't think we'll have that problem this year. Fingers and toes crossed. Purdue was perhaps the worst Power 4, Power 5 team of the 21st century. 1-11, 0-9, 18th in the Big Ten. I like the Barry Odom hire, but when I look at my All-Big Ten team and how talented they are, I have one All-Big Ten player, and that's on 6 teams. That includes the honorable mention, too, and he's Jack McAllister, the punter. I may have to do more research into Purdue's roster. Maybe I'm missing something, but that roster is made up of a bunch of transfers that probably wouldn't start for the most part at other Big Ten programs. It's going to be a long road up for Barry Odom, and he needs patience, first and foremost. At 17th, we have Maryland. Maryland went from going 7-6 and back-to-back 8-5 seasons to finishing 4-8, 1-8, and they beat a USC team that they shouldn't have beaten, but USC did that last year. They lost a lot of games, a lot of close games that Lincoln Riley typically doesn't lose. 17th in the Big Ten, and maybe in terms of conference record, they won't be 17th again, but I think in power rankings, I just realized it said ratings on the screen. That's my bad. That goes for my SEC one as well. I'll make sure to put that in the comment section below. Power rankings. I don't want there to be confusion. Evidently, I'm causing it, but I think you all get the point from my video title, from the video cover, and same with the comment as well that I'll have pinned, actually. You'll get the point. Power rankings. I'm not a computer. I can't accurately create ratings. But Maryland doesn't have all that much talent. I think their hope is freshman quarterback Malik Washington, maybe Justin Martin, but if Malik Washington doesn't start, I really don't like their odds to do anything special. Most of their All-Big Ten teamers are on special teams. I have one All-Big Ten player, another one in the 5th and 6th teams, the honorable mention. I don't like where Maryland's heading. I don't think Mike Locksley's going to survive past this season. Next up, we have UCLA. 14th in the Big Ten, 5-7, 3-6. They lose a lot of guys. They also bring in a lot of guys from the portal, including Nico Imaliava and also Javion Thomas at running back. So their skill positions are better than some teams on this list for sure on this Big Ten power rankings video. And I also like their special teams, especially Mateen Bagani, who I think is one of the better kickers in the nation. But only one all Big Ten player and 4 in terms of depth. I don't think they have any players who are the best of the best at whatever they do. And on top of losing so much production and having an inexperienced coach, I think that could come to bite them this year, especially since their schedule, while manageable, is far from easy, and they actually have a tough non-conference game against Utah. So what UCLA needs to do to have success this year, in my mind, is just keep fighting, much like they did last year. I thought it was impressive how Deshaun Foster's players played for him. They never gave up. They need some of that this year if they want to go bowling. We have Northwestern at 15th. The Wildcats, 4-8, 2-7 in the Big Ten. I love their defense, but that offense has questions. I'm very curious to see what Preston Stone does after he got benched last year and played terribly. Their best offensive player is tackle Caleb Tiernan, who I think is the 4th best tackle in the Big Ten. And then on defense, Aiden Hubbard at D-end, Mac Uthleyan at linebacker, Damon Walters at safety, and Josh Fussell at corner, along with incoming transfer Fred Davis at corner. I love those players on defense. They're on my 6 All-Big Ten teams. The majority of them are actually on the top 4 teams, which means they make the All-Big Ten list, and they're not honorable mentions like the 5th and 6th teams. My teams are much larger, and there's a higher quantity of them than most, because I think there's just so many good players, especially with super conferences, that it's only fair to dramatically expand the teams. Plus, it also serves as almost an accurate assessment tool of the roster. Since I'm not just looking at top-end talent or what the media thinks is top-end talent, I'm looking at even the 2-deep. There are some programs where they have their 3rd-string players on my All-Big Ten teams. Mostly honorable mentions, but still, there are some teams with serious depth. Northwestern's not one of them, and with their schedule and the fact that they keep losing their better players to the portal because it's a hard place to play at, it's a hard place to win. I imagine they don't have awesome NIL. They might be stuck in purgatory. I hope not, though. I'm ultimately rooting for David Braun. At 14th, we have the Washington Huskies. It might surprise you that I'm this low on Washington, but quarterback, well, the most important position on the field, is not going to win you 8 games on its own unless you're generational. And I don't quite think DeMond Williams Jr. is that. I'm high on him, by the way. I think that he is a top 3rd Big Ten quarterback, but I don't have him pegged at Drew Aller, Fernando Mendoza levels of proven. And I think that Bryce Underwood, Julian Sayin, and Dante Moore, in part because of their systems, but also because of their, what I think is better talent, I think they'll be better than him this year. I love Jonah Coleman at running back too, and I think that Carver Willis was a necessary add in the portal. He's going to be their best offensive lineman in a strong O-line conference. Denzel Boston, Kaliki Latu, Decker DeGraff are great receivers. Their biggest problem is on defense. They brought in Ryan Walters, and I don't know whether or not they have the players, the skill to run his defense. So I think the defense is what's going to determine their success this season. The offense, I think, will be good, but if their defense is not secure and it looks anything like Purdue's does last year, this is a team that could actually regress record-wise. And they went 6-7, 4-5, couldn't win a road game to save their life, but played a lot of teams competitively. I think that Jed Fish will succeed at Washington. I just think he's a year away or more. We have Rutgers at 13th in the Big Ten. Rutgers disappointed me last season. I thought this was a team that was going to win 9 or 10 games. Bold prediction, I know, but how Wisconsin blew them out, losing to UCLA at home, losing to that Nebraska team on the road, getting destroyed by USC. In truth, they were not a good team. They just weren't. Now, they do bring back 70% of their production. I do have them with 8 All-Big Ten players, 13 including the honorable mention, 5th and 6th team. And Kaliak Manis, if he dramatically improves with Ian Strong, KJ Duff at wide receiver, and I have all 5 of Rutgers starting offensive linemen on my All-Big Ten teams, I think their offense can be sneaky good. Combine that with a defense that was so bad and banged up at points last year, they're almost guaranteed to be better. And Rutgers could be a superior team to last year. Their schedule's tough, but this is a power rankings video, not a schedule and prediction video, so that'll be saved for another time. Make sure to hit the bell if you want to get notified when that video drops in the next week, maybe even next few days. I'll be dropping the Big Ten predictions video. Rutgers is a team that can definitely punch above their weight class, and with good special teams, offense that should be Schiano's best, and potentially good defense, pay attention to this team entering 2025. We have Michigan State at 12th. I'm higher on the Spartans than a lot of people. I think, speaking of Rutgers, I think, what was it? 41 to 14 was the final score last year between Michigan State and Rutgers. I think that loss, the Indiana loss, and to a certain degree even the Michigan loss and the Illinois loss too really took the wind out of the sails for Jonathan Smith. I don't think people minded how they played against Ohio State and Oregon. I think they played against Ohio State admirably, and they played against Oregon as admirably as possible on a short week and factoring in the travel time. They did. But at the end of the day, they were talentless outside of a few of their starters, and as they got injured, their depth got exposed. I think with some of the portal additions they've made and the players they've retained, I think they've improved in that department. And Michigan State's a team where, look, I'm high on Aiden Childs. I think he'll be a top half quarterback in the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten actually has the deepest quarterback room out of all the conferences, especially at the top. I think the Big Ten is the best quarterback room, straight up, entering 2025. So Childs is going to be one of the better QBs in the nation in my mind. I like what they've done at tackle with Connor Moore, and I think they'll develop Stanton Ramel. And Nick Marsh and Jack Velling is a deadly wide receiver and tight end duo. On defense, they got some nice players like Grady Kelly from the portal, and I think Jalen Thompson's good. But then again, they are dealing with a roster left over from Scotty Hazelton, who was one of the worst defensive coordinators I've ever witnessed in my brief moment as a college football fan. I think Sparty is going to be really good this year. I think Michigan State, they just hired a new athletic director today at the time of this recording. Hired a new AD who I think does business, means business, and I think Jonathan Smith is one of the better coaches in the country, particularly at doing more with less. So I'm higher on Michigan State than a lot of people. I will tell you here and now, I think that they will win more games than some teams ahead of them by virtue of how good I think that staff is at punching above their weight class and scheming. We have Minnesota at 11th. They went 8-5, 5-4, and they won the Duke's Mayo Bowl because PJ Fleck always wins his bowl games. Michigan State, by the way, I had them with 7 all Big Ten players, 13 if you count the final 2 teams, the 5th and 6th team, the honorable mentions. Minnesota, I have 8 all Big Ten players, 15 if you count the honorable mention teams. This defense is loaded with talent. I mean, this comes across to me like a 2022 or 2023 Iowa defense where they are that talented and could be that good. I don't know if they have the coordinator, though, or the corners. They're close, but I don't know if they're quite there. And they should be better on offense than those teams, but the problem is they do play a sneaky tough schedule, and the Big Ten West doesn't exist anymore. So I wonder what they'll do, especially with Drake Lindsay at quarterback. This is a team that could be way better than I think they'll be. They could also be even worse than I think they will be. I think that their win total of 6.5, and I don't bring up win totals too much because, again, this is a power ranking segment, not a schedule prediction segment. But I think their win total of 6.5 is probably pretty accurate. More likely than not, they'll go over than under. But this is a interesting team for sure when you just look at it. I think Coy Parrish is one of the best safeties in football, and I think that their D-tackle room is very underrated. You have Devin Eastern, Moa Monode, and Jalen Logan Redding. I mean, when you have more than 2 capable bodies at D-tackle and you're Minnesota, that's something to be proud of. And Darius Taylor at running back, he has a friend, and that friend is A.J. Turner. I think that could be the best running back duo in the country. Could be better than Penn State's and Notre Dame's. Not saying it is, but it could be. It has that potential. We have Iowa at 10th. The Iowa Hawkeyes. Wow. They went 8-5 last year despite being way better than the prior year's 10-14 in terms of power ratings. But that's what happens when you go from winning almost all your close games to, well, meeting reality, and you regress to the mean and you lose a lot of your close games. This should be the best offense of the Kirk Ferentz era. I love Mark Gronowski, and I think Kamari Moulton is going to do well with that offensive line that returns Logan Jones, Bo Steffens, Jennings Dunker, etc. And they also return Edison Ostrenga, Aaron Graves, Ethan Herkett, Max Llewellyn. I think that their offense will get much better, and their D-line will actually be better than it was last year. But linebacker, they're going to be much worse. It's going to be the same at corner and safety. They have good players still at linebacker, safety, and corner, but there's a chance that this Phil Parker defense could be even worse than last year's. Since he's a wizard, there's also a chance it'll be better than last season's. Regardless, I think that Iowa will probably be a top 30, top 35 team in power ratings again, not quite top 25 like they were last year in most power ratings, but they'll still be a good team. Their schedule's just tough as nails, though. Much tougher than it was last season. If there's anyone to overachieve with that, it's going to be Kirk Ferentz, especially now that he has an offense on top of having a good special teams unit and still some talent on defense to work with. 9th. Maybe this one's shocking to all of you. Take a pause and look at the screen if you don't know who I'm talking about. If you're not on YouTube or not actively looking at the screen or didn't want to, it's Wisconsin. Yes, I have Wisconsin dead center. In fact, a little bit above dead center in the power ratings for the Big Ten, or the power rankings. Apologies again. Sometimes I get those two terms mixed up, especially since I'm using power for both, and I accidentally printed on the screen power ratings. But they're close enough. I'm just making the distinction in my video title because I think since I'm not a computer, I'm not totally unbiased, and I can be inconsistent since I don't have all these, mathematics, scientific laws to hold computer ratings into check. I call them rankings because they're my personal power rankings. They're not, whether it's a system developed by me or someone else, a computer or algorithmic, if that's even a word, power ratings. Maybe I'm confusing all of you, but I think it's an important distinction to make, or try to make. But Wisconsin is a confusing team, speaking of confusion. They went 5-7 last year and got blown out by Iowa, Nebraska, and dominated by Minnesota. And yet they competed with Oregon, nearly upset them, and competed with Penn State as well. Talk about confusing. I have Wisconsin pegged with 8 all Big Ten players, 16 including the two deep, or not the two deep, but the 2 honorable mention teams. Iowa, by the way, had 12 all Big Ten players, but 15 when you looked at the honorable mention teams in addition to the top 4. I think Wisconsin is probably going to go bowling again this year. I know their win total suggests 5-7 is more likely than 7-5, but I love Billy Edwards and what he brings along with the offensive line and receiver group they have. Tretch Kikahuna and Vinny Anthony II, I think, make up good wide receivers. And they upgraded their D-end and D-tackle rooms big time. They have some capable linebackers, and their secondary could be one of the best in the Big Ten with Nazir Forcorine, Ricardo Hallman at corner, Austin Brown at safety, Preston Zachman at safety. And I think Mike Tressel, I think the world of him as a DC. I think the world of Luke Fickell as a head coach. So I'm staying strong on the fact that I think Wisconsin ultimately is it's for the better that Wisconsin has Luke Fickell than not. At 8th, we have Nebraska in terms of Big Ten power rankings. Nebraska should have won more games last year than just 6 with the talent that they had. But they lost to UCLA, they lost to Illinois, they lost to Iowa despite outgaining them by nearly 200 yards. That's a team where if you just change a few things, or maybe Marcus Satterfield is fired after 2023, and maybe Rule overreacts a bit, but in a way that works out, they might go 7-5 or 8-4, even 9-3. This year, given the changes they've made, I think it's a guarantee they're going to improve in terms of win-loss record, and they're going to improve in power ratings and power rankings. I hesitate to put them higher because of all they lose on defense. Nash Hutmacher, Ty Robinson, Princely Unman-Malin, they're gone, or Princewell Unman-Malin. They're gone, off to different schools. It's same with a lot of other players too. They lost a ton in their defensive line, a ton in their two deep. And I don't have anyone on their defensive line, D-end or D-tackle, on my 6 all Big Ten teams. So I do not think that unit will be good. But Vincent Shavers Jr., Dasan McCullough, and Marquise Watson-Trent might make up the best linebacker room in the Big Ten. And I think that Andrew Marshall and Sierra Wright at corner, the projected starting corners, will be awesome. So 8 all Big Ten players, 16 in the all Big Ten team depth, same as Wisconsin. The only reason Nebraska's higher than Wisconsin is actually quarterback. I think that Dylan Ryle is a much better quarterback than Billy Edwards Jr., and I think that schedule will play a part too. Nebraska's a much easier schedule, so by the end of the year they won't be quite as worn as Wisconsin. If they had identical schedules, I might almost boldly say Wisconsin might be better than Nebraska this year, but they're very similar teams. I think the rosters for both of them match up to break out this year. Nebraska's schedule and the fact that they did a much better job, and it's a credit to Rule, they did a much better job at recruiting quarterback than Wisconsin did a much better job of pulling some X-factor players compared to Wisconsin. Wisconsin's more of like a gritty team, an older team. I think they're deeper than Nebraska in most parts, but they do not have the ceiling that Nebraska does. So the ceiling, easier schedule, and the fact that they basically have 2 head coaches in Dana Holgerson and Matt Rule in terms of experience, in Wisconsin as one. Those were some of the tiebreakers that pushed Nebraska ahead of Wisconsin for me. At 7th, we have Illinois. Illinois is a team where I actually expect them to regress in terms of record compared to 2024 with how many close games they won. But with how much they bring back, I think that they're going to be one of the better teams in the middle of the Big Ten. Not quite upper third. We'll get to that. But I have them with 10 all Big Ten players, 15 if you count the 5th and 6th teams. And Luke Altmaier is a better quarterback in my mind for all the teams we've talked about so far, minus Washington's DeMond Williams Jr. And Altmaier is much more proven than DeMond Williams Jr. Maybe I'm disrespecting Luke Altmaier by ranking him behind him, but having a really good quarterback, having Tanner Arkin at tight end, Josh Kreutz and J.C. Davis returning at center and tackle and other offensive linemen, and then having Xavier Scott, Matthew Bailey, Miles Scott, Torrey Cox Jr., and Caleb Patterson, almost all of their secondary, if not all of their secondary, comes back. That right there, as of right now, is, I would say, the best, or it's certainly a top 2 secondary in the Big Ten. Certainly. I don't think that's debatable. The question for Illinois is, I think, what Aaron Henry can do at DC. I think this is a prove-it year for him. How do they pan out on the defensive line where they're relying a lot on transfers? And also, can the offensive line take steps forward when it was one of the worst in the Big Ten last season? If they can do all those things, if all those ifs are answered positively for Illinois, then yes, this team could and might even be favored to reach the playoffs. But that's a lot of ifs to answer, in my opinion. At 6th, we have USC. Finished 7-6, 4-5 in the Big Ten. Lost a lot of close games. I'm optimistic about USC. Not only were they top 3rd in the Big Ten in power ratings last year because they tied everyone or led everyone in the 4th quarter, and were one of the only teams to do that in college football. Not only that, but Lincoln Riley typically wins 70% of his close games, and he lost the majority of them last year. And that 70% number includes last year's number, so it's probably closer to, 80% close games being won by Riley is the norm. So taking that into consideration, along with D'Anton Lynn and his staff being in year 2, and USC having the recruiting portal momentum they do, hiring Chad Bowen, hiring Tremaine Carroll as the strength and conditioning coach, I love the energy this team has, and I think some of it is going to translate to on-field success. Their running back room could be one of the deeper rooms in the Big Ten. Waymon Jordan, Eli Sanders, and Brian Jackson, I think, are all capable Power 4 starters at running back, if not better than that. I think Jaden Mayava, I don't have him as the best Big Ten quarterback, not even close, but he's also in a stacked conference for quarterbacks, so he'll be one of the better QBs in the nation. Definitely better than he was last year. I think their offensive line's a little bit underrated, and Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane make up an awesome wide receiver duo. Combine that with the fact that this is the deepest USC defensive line in a long time, and I think Eric Gentry is an All-American at linebacker. I have him tabbed as the best linebacker overall in the Big Ten, and Kamari Ramsey comes back. I think that USC is going to take steps forward. They may not be much better in power rankings / ratings compared to last year, but I think their win-loss record is going to be way better. And I mean way better, as in definitely 2 games better, and I would say it's more likely than not 3 games better. Could be 4 games better, or even better than that. We have Michigan at 5th. Michigan returns over 60% of their production, unlike a lot of the teams around them, so that helps them improve. And they've done a good job on defense, I think, developing and recruiting there. They also return the majority of their O-line. I love Bryce Underwood at quarterback. I think that's a guy who, even as a freshman, can take over games on his own. Only his supporting cast limits him. And for Michigan, that's wide receiver, where I think they have one of the worst wide receiver rooms in the Big Ten. Have a good one in Donovan McCulley, but outside of that, I don't know who else in that room can even be good. Marlon Klein comes back at tight end, but Colston Loveland leaves, and then Kalel Mullings leaves at running back. The 2D tackles, first-rounders, Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham depart. I think Michigan's D-line will take steps back, as anyone with logic should, but I think that Derek Moore is a great D-end. TJ Guy and Cameron Brandt, I think, will be better than they were last year. And look at this D-tackle room. Rayshawn Benny, Trey Pierce, Damon Payne Jr., Ike Awuna, Trey Williams. I have 5 Michigan defensive tackles, 5 of them, on my All-Big Ten team. Now, again, 6 total teams, so a lot of teams, not all of them are first or second teamers, but all of them are fourth teamers. Whether you look at the PFF grades, the incoming talent, the fact that Lou Esposito's a good coach, this D-line is going to be really stinking good. And then when you look at linebacker, 4 seniors there, you have Rod Moore coming off of injury. If he can play and play healthy at all this year, that's going to be an upgrade over what Michigan had last year. Brandon Hillman should emerge. And then Yair Hill was graded very highly at corner at the end of last year. This should be a top 5 defense. The question is, how big is the drop-off on the defensive line? I think the answer there is going to be not a whole lot, but definitely some that'll be noticeable at points. The bigger question that I have a harder time answering positively is the offense. It'll definitely take steps forward, large steps forward with the quarterback talent, but wide receiver will limit that unit. And that, along with the fact that while I have Michigan's coaching staff is a good staff, could be great, it's not even close to elite, unlike the final 4 teams that we'll be talking about. Indiana actually has the second best coaching staff in the Big Ten by my grades, but because of their talent limitations, they're 4th in power rankings. I think Indiana will be better than they were last year. Last year, they were 10th or 11th in power ratings, whether it was FPI or S&P+. I have them top 8 this year. And I think that this year will be a similar year to last year. Maybe a little bit weaker due to the low returning production, but I think Indiana will be a better team this year than last year. That's a bold prediction I have. They return over 60% of their production. I think that Mendoza is an upgrade over Rourke, and I'm going to make a video about that. And then Roman Hemby and Lee Beebe Jr. is a much better running back duo than what they had last year. Combine that with Pat Coogan coming in from Illinois and Drew Evans and Bray Lynch returning at guard, along with Carter Smith at tackle. This O-line should be better, particularly at running the football. And they return Elijah Surratt. I think that Indiana's D-tackle unit is underrated. Tyreek Tucker is awesome, and then Dominique Ratcliffe and Jose Wheeler, 2 incoming transfers, I think will fit well in the Big Ten. At D end, they returned Michael Kamara and said that wasn't enough. And they brought in Stephen Daly from Kent State, who's a good MAC D end, and Kellen Wyatt, a Maryland D end, who I had in my All Big Ten team. They also returned D'Angelo Pons. So, for whatever it's worth, I think this Indiana defense is once again going to be among the nation's elite, like it was at the end of the year. And this offense might have more juice to it because they have more of an NFL quarterback in Mendoza and return a lot of key players and bring in some Power 4 starters. I'm high on Indiana. I think you should be too. However, I understand if you think with a tougher schedule, they're going to take a step back record-wise. We have Ohio State at third. Reigning national champions, 14-2 record. I actually haven't mentioned, I need to stop doing that, forgetting the number of all Big Ten players. So I'm going to quickly rehash them. USC, 10 all Big Ten players, 19 if you count the 5th and 6th teamers, the honorable mentions. For Michigan, 18 all Big Ten players, 27 in the honorable mention. Michigan is a team that's really, really deep, but they don't have a lot of high caliber proven guys, which is why I have them at 5th. Indiana, 18 all Big Ten players, 26th in the honorable mention, including the honorable mention. Much like Michigan, I think Indiana actually has more proven high twitch guys than Michigan does, just slightly more, and also a better staff, which is why I think Indiana is actually significantly better than Michigan, not just a little bit better than Michigan. Ohio State, 16 all Big Ten players, 22 once you factor in the 5th and 6th team. So on the surface, you might think, well, you have them with less all Big Ten players than Indiana and Michigan. You think they're going to be worse, and the answer is no. No, because they have way more alien players than either Indiana and Michigan do. They have the two best players in college football, who are worth multiple first-team All-Big Ten players by themselves. You simply by putting Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith in the All-Big Ten first team, you cannot quantify how much better they are than the second guy behind them. You can't. It's impossible. So that, along with their sheer talent potential, puts them in the top 3 for me. I do think, though, that Ohio State will have concerns with overall depth, with how much they lose and the fact that they relied a lot on seniors last year. It's similar from Michigan to 2024 to 2025, or from 2023 to 2024, although I think Michigan, particularly defensively, did a better job rotating in 2023, and I think they were much deeper and more talented overall on defense in 23 than Ohio State was in 24. Ohio State just compensated for that with a better DC than what Michigan had in Jim Knowles versus Jesse Minter, and they lose Jim Knowles. So there's some questions there, and I think there might be some questions for Ohio State at other positions. I know that Ohio State fans often think this O-line will be top 10, but I don't think there's much evidence to back that up. They'll be a good unit nationally, I think once again average by Ohio State standards, but I think Bowen's going to have them humming in a year. I think after a year of kind of clearing things out, assessing the room, and recruiting, I think that in 2026, Ohio State will be a really good team. I have them as my way too early national championship pick for 2026. I've spent a lot of time talking about them, but that's because I do have them ranked 3rd behind 2 teams they beat last year. And I also want to spend some time, similar amount of time, talking about the 2 teams that are ahead of them, which you can obviously guess. This team will still compete for national titles, though. Ohio State will. Not just 2 years from now in 26, but this coming year as well. They're just way too talented. Ryan Day's the 2nd best head coach in America. And Julian Sayin, I never thought I'd be saying this. Julian Sayin's very underrated. There are many people who don't have him as a top 5 Big Ten quarterback. He's guaranteed to be top 5. I'll tell you that right here. We have Oregon at number 2. Oregon is similar to Ohio State, where I don't think they have quite as much depth at certain positions as Michigan or even Indiana, but their talent profile is just so big, and their potential for aliens is so much larger than that of the Wolverines or the Hoosiers that I have them significantly ahead of them, especially Michigan. Indiana's staff might be able to compensate for some of the lack of talent. Michigan's, I don't think so. Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana, Penn State, that's the top 4, because I think they have all easily top 10 staffs in college football. I think all of them have top 8 staffs guaranteed, though I'll have to check on that. Oregon has 19 all Big Ten players, 23 when you include the 5th and 6th team, the honorable mentions. Mekhi Hughes is a wonderful player. Manuel Pregnon, Isaiah World, Alex Harkey will make up an awesome offensive line. What I'm more interested in with Oregon, besides Mateo Uyunglele on defense, is their potential to have multiple true freshman players impacting them. For Ohio State, for example, last year that was Jeremiah Smith, and I think Devin Sanchez can be that for them this year. For Oregon, I look at Naeem Offord and Trey McNutt to have significant playing time this year, along with on offense, Brycen Moore. I think that Ohio State and Oregon share this thing in common. What they share is that at the beginning of the year, they may not even be top 10 caliber teams. They may start pretty low, but as the season goes on, they will get better as long as they're healthy. Because again, I think depending on the position you look at, they're pretty thin. And if they get a key injury in any of those positions, that could, knock them out of contention. They're not quite, in my mind, like Texas in the SEC, where Texas has just spent so much money and is recruited at such a deep level to where even after they lose a bunch, they don't have any position room where I think they're thin at, outside of maybe tight end. So Oregon and Ohio State are close, but not quite like that. They have some areas where they could get an injury, and you're just looking at that room totally differently for the rest of the year. I think for both units, that's the case actually at D-tackle. I know people have talked about Oregon's defensive line as a unit that could be really good this year. You can't say Ohio State's D-line has concerns and then turn around and say that Oregon's doesn't. They're built very similarly. A lot of talent, a lot of upside, not a whole lot of proven potential. And based on what I've seen, I think there are some concerns in both. They're also similar in the fact that at the end of the year, they'll definitely be top 6, top 5 caliber teams. I think Oregon will actually start the year worse than Ohio State. Thankfully, since they don't play Texas and Ohio State does, you may not notice that like you could with Ohio State. Not saying they'll lose to Texas, haven't made a prediction yet, but I think Texas right now is better than both these teams and will start the year off that way. But sometimes the best team doesn't always win. But I think, well, let's say that my top finger is Ohio State, bottom finger is Oregon. I think what'll happen is as the year goes on, Oregon will surpass Ohio State, at least for this year. And the reasoning for that is I think because both teams are thin at certain areas, I think that Oregon has more impactful true freshmen. And I also think Oregon's O-line is way better. It's not even close in my mind with what Oregon brought in through the portal and with what they bring back. So that's why I have Oregon ahead, even though I believe Day is a better head coach than Lanning. And if these two teams played against each other due to matchups, I'd probably pick Ohio State to win. But again, this is a power rankings video, not a prediction segment. Penn State's at 1. I don't even think it's close. Penn State has more all Big Ten players than anyone else has all Big Ten players factoring in the honorable mentions. So in my top 4 teams in the Big Ten, Penn State has 28 players. Michigan and Indiana, Ohio State, and Oregon, when you factor in the honorable mentions, don't even have that much. And when you factor in the honorable mentions for Penn State, I have 35 players. They're deep. They're old. They have the best coordinator duo in football. They have the best quarterback in the Big Ten in my mind, the best running back duo in football, the best guard in football in Vega Ione, the second best center in Nick Dawkins. Their wide receiver core is worse than Ohio State's. It's worse than USC's. That's literally it. I think it's going to be better than Oregon's, based on proven production, certainly. And I think it will even be better than Indiana's. Their tight end room is the deepest in the Big Ten. You look at D-tackle, I think Zane Durant's the best overall D-tackle. Denai Dennis Sutton could be that at end. Tony Roas could be that at linebacker. I think A.J. Harris is the best overall corner. I love Zakee Wheatley at safety. Caleb Downs is just in the same conference. That's why he's not the number 1 overall safety. And they return their special teamers. They weren't too good last year, but returning them should help, and I think they should improve. look, James Franklin's the only thing holding this team back. If Ryan Day was coaching this team, I would pick this team to probably beat everyone by double digits. If Ryan Day was the head coach here, they would beat everyone by double digits, and they'd go 16-0 if they had Ryan Day as their coach with this staff and roster. That's what I would pick, straight up. Especially since, just to make a little joke, they don't play Michigan, and Michigan's not going to Indy. So, yeah. And if Day were at Penn State, that wouldn't even be a problem. It's the same thing if Dan Lanning were Penn State's head coach. If Cignetti was Penn State's head coach. If all you did was change the head coaches, kept the staff, kept the roster, so many head coaches I think would go undefeated with this roster. I genuinely think it's that good. I am that high on Penn State, but Franklin is a question mark, and that does give me some pause as to how high I am on Penn State, because that man has not won a top 5 national championship caliber matchup since 2016. And I don't even know if that Ohio State team was national championship caliber. So Penn State's my best overall team in the Big Ten, number 1 overall team in America, and I don't think it's particularly close. Those are my Big Ten predictions. Again, may I remind you, just because I have Penn State as that good of a team does not mean I'm picking them to win the Big Ten. Hit the notification bell so that you can get notified when I release my Big Ten predictions video. And make sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. Thank you all so much, and I will see you around.